And hello, good morning. I'm David Balls, and this is Balls.tv. Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern. Hit the wrong button, restarted the whole thing. Still have a little bit of echo. And the reason I test it every day is because I think, well, maybe the gremlins are working overtime overnight, and they will help. I'm going to the skin doctor today, and we'll see what kind of report we get. But it's good my hair is this short and this weird looking, because I'm going to ask him to look all over and see if he can find weird things that are usually hidden by my goop and my longer hair. Could be a blessing, could be problems, I don't know. Busy day today. I feel like I have lots of props, lots of things to share. Oppressively hot here on the East Coast, as is everywhere in the world. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But there's interesting news in chess, there's other interesting news about other people, so it's going to be an action-packed couple of hours of fun with you here today. And yesterday we learned about GAF underwear, which I had no idea was a thing. And now I know all about it, and it's a very interesting device used for transitioning from a male to female body or a female to male body. And the GAF is your end objective. So yesterday on the show, a friend of the show, Gordon Davidescu, coming to you live in person from the great state of Florida, said, hey, if you like peanuts, get some Bombas. And we were live on the show, and the sneaky Jana Marie was actually watching the show with us as well. And so Gordon gave us all the details, and here is my great success. I've tried not to eat the whole thing in one sitting. La 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 bamba. Puffed peanut corn snacks. They're Cheetos for those who like peanuts. And they look like the old carnival peanuts. I've been actually to a Barnum and Bailey circus in Lincoln, Nebraska, where they sold sort of carnival peanuts, both the candy version and the real peanut version. And they're very delicious. It tastes just like peanut butter. These are the regular plain version. I think they have a delightful taste. Thank the commissioner so much for recommending them. I don't know how I'm ever going to stop eating them, however, but that's a problem we all would like to have. So Jana Marie, when the show is over, raced to Trader Joe. And I had sent her the photographs of our Bombas. And said, hey, where are these? And the Trader Joe person, and they're usually very friendly, but this particular person said, we don't have them. And Jana was like, what? So she kept shopping. We're out of this. It's my favorite seasoning of all time. Everything but the bagel. Absolutely fantastic on everything. And not spicy. And then she found my newest love, which I didn't know was a love. Black garlic. Oh, yes. I sprinkled some of this last night on our vegan mac and cheese, and it was really delicious. And you think garlic is soft, and well, this is, I guess, freeze-dried, I don't know, garlic. But it shakes like salt and tastes like heaven. So Jana got that stuff, went back to the office, sitting there throughout her day, maybe stewing. And in her mind, she said, now, wait a minute. Trader Joe people are very friendly. And this person kind of brushed me off. I think I'm going to go take a break. And I'm going back to Trader Joe. So she went back to Trader Joe, found a different person, showed them the images of the Bombas that we had yesterday. And The second person I said, yeah, they're right over there. And Janet went over and found the bombas. This is the hazelnut bomba. They did not seem to have the chocolate bomba. But this is, as you can see, a bomba that is filled with hazelnut. And it's like a chocolate cream, I guess. Wow! Fabulous. Totally fabulous. She bought 2 of these small bags, and I have 1 left. Super, super delicious. Of course, we thank Gordon, who has memorized the entire Trader Joe offering of products, and we wait for him to tell us what we need to get next. However, we've now asked 4 times. There is no cascatelli pasta, which is a little sad because you get addicted to it and then they don't have it anymore. So I hope it's coming back. I hope it wasn't, this temporary thing where they break your heart. As the Trader Joe group on Reddit has been talking about repeatedly for 3 days now, what did Trader Joe have that you loved and that they discontinued? And boy, people have lists. They remember. As I remember. I was very interested in their Thanksgiving potato chips because it had that seasoning, which doesn't sound spicy to me, but we couldn't find them. I don't know why. But the grainless granola we have found again. I'm so glad that's back. That's the #1 best thing they ever had that I've had so far. Really super delicious. So speaking of deliciosity, Maker's Mark is a very famous, I don't know if it's a whiskey or a bourbon, they're all very particular about this down south. But Maker's Mark allows you to be an ambassador. They have a wonderful, genius website where you can join and you can put your name on a casket virtually. And then they'll send you a label that's the actual label if you want to pay for it, which is all fine. And then for 7 years, you get updates on your casket. And then when your casket is ready, you can buy the liquor from your casket. That's neat. It includes people from day one. And one thing they do, if you're an ambassador, is every year they send you a gift. And every year, I look forward to it because it's always very different. One year we got socks, which was a little weird. One year we got sort of a stained glass window that was like this, made of plastic. You could hang on your tree as an ornament. Very creative. And the one we received in December was this one. A puzzle. This was very creative. And last week, I received an email from Maker's Mark saying, hey, you're an ambassador. And, the environment, and we don't want to send you these gifts automatically as we've been doing. We're going to send you a gift only if you want it. And you have to go log into our website and click on a button that says you want to be included, and then we'll keep sending you stuff. But go there right now. So I immediately went there because I don't want to miss out on this. And the server was down. They crashed their own server, and it was down for about a day and a half. Finally, I got in, and you have to go into your account and turn on the setting because the setting's off, but it looks like it's on. Only when you click it and it turns green and a word comes up that says on, do you know that it's actually on. Which makes me feel like they don't want to give gifts anymore, but whatever. So we've been holding on to this puzzle since December. QR code, I don't know where that goes, but scan it and see what happens. Scan to see more from Star Hill Farm. Okay. And then on the celebration of our 34th wedding anniversary, Jana Marie and I decided one of the events we would do for the day is to finally sit down and put together this puzzle. Because it was fun and it was free. And we like, putting together Legos, very simple Legos, not the complicated stuff. The little things with 5 pieces we put together. Not the big drastic ones. I see now they have an Atari 2000 something Lego kit. I think it's $300. It looks interesting. So we worked on our puzzle. And after a day of working on our puzzle, we were very tired and we didn't have very much of it done. Now, I know 2 things about puzzles. I'm not a puzzle person, never been a puzzle person. I don't like puzzles. Because I think that it can all fit together if we just angle it right. But it seems when you're doing a puzzle, there's really only one way to solve a puzzle, which I have a hard time accepting. Commissioner Gordon says, thank you for reminding me. I just went and updated my home address at Maker's Mark. People that moved into the apartment where I used to live got my puzzle. You missed a good one. Some years, this last year was very good. And go into your account and turn on saying, I want my gift. But I do know there are 2 rules of puzzles putting together. One is to find the corners if you have a square puzzle. So we did that. We bump, 4 corners. Yes. Great success. Then I know you're supposed to then fill in the lines, the outline of the puzzle. So you find the straight edge, that's straight edge, this is the sky, straight edge here, sides put together. Okay, so that worked. That's about as far as we got. Because as you can see, it is a very complex puzzle. Lots of similar pieces. Lots of houses that look the same. Not exactly like the drawing or the painting, but close enough where you could use this as sort of a guide to help you fill in the rest of the puzzle. So over the days since our anniversary, we have been slowly putting together this puzzle. And I had this whole section. Let's see, where is it? Oh, not that one. I had this whole section all put together. But it didn't fit the puzzle. But I knew that I had it right because it all fit together. And I know sometimes I put pieces together that don't belong together. So I had put it off on the side. And we got the rest of this. This was very good because it was blue, like the sky. The arcs and angles are good. Finally, after about 2 hours of struggling with this, I finally said, okay, there's a reason that this isn't coming together, and I don't know what the reason is. And the reason I figured out was this sky is very, very tricky if you're not a puzzle person. Now, puzzle people probably know that there are tricks in the sky, that there are 2 or 3 or 4 pieces that will interchangeably lock together perfectly. And you have to look at the outline of the cloud, see if the cloud lines up. Okay, puzzle people, you know that, but I don't know that. We didn't know that. So we had like 3 pieces from the sky here that were over here, but it looked good. So I slowly started dismantling the sky. Then I put this big piece back in there. And then the sky started coming together, but I had to leave alone my idea that the sky was right. I had to go back and realize maybe there's an error. And once I found that, see, this tree right here looks suspiciously like this tree if you're not paying attention. But then once you fixed the sky, everything else just all came together. So this took us much longer than it should have. We feel a great relief and success that our marriage is now stronger, made by a puzzle piece. You find the victories and you take them wherever you can find them. And I have also ordered from Amazon some kind of preserver for the puzzle. Now, when I was younger, if you wanted to preserve a puzzle, you take Elmer's glue and you squirt it all over your puzzle like this, and then take some kind of like squeegee thing and sort of thin it out so it would all stick together. And then theoretically, if it was thin enough, it would dry clear. And then there are professional glue things. The new thing appears to be you don't touch the front of the puzzle. You leave the front of the puzzle alone, and you buy special adhesive sheets of paper that are strong. You peel the adhesive from the backing, and then you place your puzzle on top of the adhesive. So it's the back of your puzzle that is being stuck to something and preserving the front of the puzzle. And then once it all, I guess, comes together, sticks together, then you can hang your puzzle on the wall or put it in a frame or something. And it's a bigger puzzle than you would think. There were a lot of pieces, and they were very tiny, and you had to wear your glasses. And I do have a theory that I could mix this puzzle up entirely and put it all back together again, upside down and backward, and it would all still fit, because the puzzle pieces are very tricky. I stumbled upon this wonderful photograph of Marilyn Monroe the other day. I think it was she was trending on Twitter for some reason. This is near the end of her life, and she was in a session with Richard Avedon. You know, they talked to each other, and she wasn't posing. She was just thinking about her life, and her expression is just so beautiful and yet so sad. You wonder what she's thinking, and I guess we know what she's thinking. You know, she spent all her life trying to be a sex symbol. I guess became a sex symbol, and then didn't want anything to do with it. And someone online said, you know, why would your life goal be to be a sex symbol if you have any value for yourself? Oh, you just want to be known for sex? That you're sexy? That you look good? That doesn't seem like that would be very lasting. And of course it was not. Sort of fleeting. So in the news, hard to resist. Our old pal Jeff Goldblum, sitting poolside, 1965, and he's 13 years old. He looks like an adult, looks like a 33-year-old guy. But it's the young Jeff. And oh, what he would become. And he would become what? Himself. Because that's Jeff. At 13, that is Jeff how we know him today. Same glasses, same hair, same great smile. It's a joy to know the Jeff. And in other news, oh boy. This is Magnus Carlsen, world champion for the last 5 years. And he says he's not quitting chess, but he's not going to defend his title, which is very odd, but not surprising, because for a year he's been saying, I don't really want to play anymore. There's no one that challenges me. Alireza Firouzja, who is a upcoming kid, 18 years old, is very interesting. Alireza did not win the candidates, which is the chess contest to be able to play Magnus. And I guess that Alireza, the word on his game by the people who were coaching him is that he's very immature. He likes tricks. He likes to be explosive. He likes to overwhelm you and trick you into winning. And when you're playing against lesser players, you tend to win. You get a lot of accolades. But when you play formal games over the board with really high-rated players, they don't fall for those tricks and their gimmicks. They see through your attempt to obfuscate. And it sort of makes them mad that you're trying to trick them. And so they come down hard on you. And Alireza did not fare well in the candidates. The odd thing about this is last year, Magnus played Jan Nepomniachtchi, who's a Russian, a chess player, does not support the war. And Magnus destroyed Jan. Jan just freaked out and melted, and Magnus whooped him. And you could tell Magnus was bored by the whole thing. Easy, set him up to knock him down. And this is on the chess24.com website, which Magnus owns. So this is where he made his announcement. He'd been in, I guess, negotiations with FIDE to change how the game was going to go. But then it appears that he had a meeting with FIDE, the governing body of chess, and said, well, we had a meeting, but the meeting was me telling them I wasn't going to play. I wasn't making any demands. I wasn't asking for more money. I wasn't trying to change the rules of how things would play out for the championship. I was just telling them I'm out. And this is his quote. As many know, I was in Madrid for the conclusion of the candidates tournament. After the conclusion, I did agree to meet with FIDE to talk. I did not have any demands or suggestions. They did have a couple of suggestions, but the gist of it was that I was there to tell them that I would not defend my title in the next World Championship match. And we had a small discussion. They had some suggestions. Some of them I liked. Some of them I did not. Now, Garry Kasparov, I believe, won 6 World Championships. So everyone was rooting for Magnus to smash that record and be better than Kasparov. And I guess Magnus has said from the very beginning that does not matter to him. And this is way back when he first won in 2013, his first World Championship. Go jump in a lake or maybe a pool. So it's sort of a sad day for chess because the best player in the world isn't interested anymore, which is sort of a harbinger for what's going on in the world of chess in general, in that during the pandemic, everyone was locked away at home, and online chess exploded. And people played. I got back into chess after 40 years away from the game, and it's changed, and I don't like the changes. Playing a game of chess, when I was younger, you sit down over the board, and you have a chat, you play, you talk. Now it's all about the computer. Can you beat the computer? What does the computer say? What does the computer want you to do? How do you beat the computer? What's the best line? Computer, 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 computer. And then you play people online, and they're cheating with computers. Online cheating is terrible. And people get banned, and some people don't get banned. And so you're not playing the person, you're really playing their access to a computer. It's really not very interesting. And that's why when I play against computers, because That's really the only thing that matters. Oh, play against a person because then you can psych them out. And you can, well, I'm not really interested in that because they're probably cheating. They're using a computer anyway, so I might as well just play the computer. Here's Gary, back in 2014, trying to defend himself. Magnus said 2 down, 5 to go, referring to my 7 successful World Championship matches. 6.5, really. I wish him the best of luck. Not really. And so people say, well, you have the PGA, right? Then you have Live Golf from Saudi Arabia, where they're paying Phil Mickelson $250 million to leave the PGA and join the Live Tour. $250 million up front. And people are saying, oh, that's what Magnus is going to do. He's going to break away from FIDE, like Gary did before him, Kasparov, start his own chess championship tournament, and that's what he's going to do. But it doesn't seem like that's his plan. He seems like he's very tired. He was a young prodigy. He's been the top of his game. He's bored by the competition. He has slaughtered all of the people in his generation. And you kind of can't blame the guy. Because the championship would have been between Magnus and Jan Nepomniachtchi again. Jan's a very good player, and he has not given up, and he was crushed by Magnus last year. So if you're Magnus, do you really want to go back and sit in front of and play against Jan again and crush him again? And it's a fascinating story, of which we are not done. But now we're going to take a very brief blood pressure break, returning in a moment. Hey, we're back and we're live here on Bowles TV, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern. BOLES.television. Well, we've been talking about Magnus Carlsen giving up his world title in chess. Some people still don't believe it, and there's a lot to talk about with Magnus that is really very, very interesting. But we'll stay with the announcement first. So, when you play the candidates, one person comes out, number one, and then there's a second-ranked person. And if the world champion, Magnus, decides not to play, not to defend the title, then the second-place person goes in. And Magnus had said before the candidates started that he was not going to defend if he didn't want to. So Jan won, and second place at the very last moment went to Ding Liren of China. Now, in my PR opinion, both of these guys, terrific players, not a lot of personality. When Jan was crushed last year, he tried to be brave about it. Didn't really feel for him. Just kind of like an empty vessel, a blank page. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Ding, again, nice guy, smart, great player, not a lot of personality. And when you want something to become popular, the cult of personality is very strong and very important. For example, another real-life example. This morning on the news, the abortion doctor in Indiana is suing the district attorney for defamation. And she will win because he has made terrible allegations about her, saying she doesn't practice medicine like with a license. She's just pretending because she's an abortion activist. She doesn't report when she's a mandatory reporter, and all of it's a lie. So they were interviewing the lawyer for the doctor doing the suing. I'm sure she's a wonderful, nice woman, but this is a moment in time that demands a strong individual who has a likable personality. And this attorney woman was so dull and dead and out of it and boring, you could barely listen to her. And I wanted to write to this doctor and say, you have to find a better attorney. She might be very smart in the law, but for this type of case with national attention and threats being made against your life, you have to have someone out there defending you in public who is very strong and very motivated to help you. Haha! Gordon says, Denny Crane, William Shatner's character from Boston Legal, who had a great personality. Exactly right. And this lawyer had a droning personality, saying the district attorney has put up Twitters that haven't been deleted yet. His Twitters are still there. And it's like, oh, dude, they're not Twitters, they're tweets. I mean, that's just basic functionality that you have to understand when you're going into this fight against this very charismatic and wrong district attorney, or whatever he is, attorney general, whatever, in the state of Indiana. He makes terrible accusations, but he's very convincing because he knows how to play the game. So that doctor needs to get a better attorney because this woman is dull. And I cannot imagine that a jury would find her very persuasive. Is it a jury trial? That's a good question. I don't know. I guess the way they explained it is that it has to be first a tort case against this attorney general, district attorney, whatever. And then after it becomes a tort case, then it becomes another case. that I believe would go to trial. Because that she wants money, but I guess this attorney was kind of suggesting that the former head of the Indiana School of Law at the university, I believe, filed a complaint with the bar in Indiana saying this guy is out of line and he's lying, which would mean the removal of his license if he's suspended, and they should, because he lied about 4 or 5 different things. I don't lie about her. And then he would not be able to be district attorney or attorney general anymore. He would be disbarred, which felt like that was the end game that they preferred, just to get rid of him. But if they want money, then that's going to be a jury trial, or at least the threat of one. So now you have 2 dullards, forgive me, who are super geniuses, who are going to fight this out next year. And as a chess fan, you just kind of mourn, because what could have been. Because the person who was supposed to come in second and lost at the very last second was Hikaru Nakamura, who is my all-time favorite chess grandmaster. And yes, he's brittle and he gets upset and he's rambunctious. But Hikaru has a big personality, and Hikaru was fun. I throw away what would have been one of my greatest results ever, said Hikaru Nakamura. After losing a game, he only needed to draw against Ding Liren. And that Canada tournament last round battle has now taken a huge significance. So if Hikaru had maybe just played a little better and a little safer, he would be playing Jan for the national championship, for the world championship of chess. But he let it slip away. And I'm telling you, if there's anybody in the world who is going crazy right now, it is Hikaru Nakamura, because of the opportunity that he lost. Because Hikaru has one bit of kryptonite that he has not been able to avoid for his 20-year chess career, and that is Magnus Carlsen. He cannot beat Magnus Carlsen. Maybe once or twice he'll beat him in a game, but when it matters, when it's a match, he does not win against Magnus. Period. He cannot do it. And it's a thing. It's in his mind. It's in his brain now. He cannot beat Magnus Carlsen. But Hikaru can beat Ding, and Hikaru can beat Jan. And if you had a Jan Nakamura, a Jan Hikaru candidates event that became the World Championship, chess would be alive and well. Because Hikaru's interesting. He's American. He's the American-U.S. chess champ for 5 years in the past. And the other person, I guess, who's punching themselves in the face is Fabiano Caruana, who is better than Hikaru, and who was American, and he just kind of gave up the second half of candidates because he wasn't doing well. So if he had hunkered down and tried a little bit, he could be playing for the championship against Jan, because everybody loves Jan, but Jan is not unbeatable. Magnus pretty much has been and is unbeatable. And so chess.com, Magnus is not going to defend his world title. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Going to Hikaru Nakamura's Twitter page, which is very active and always updated. And I keep refreshing this page since 8 o'clock this morning when the news broke that Magnus was out to see what, if anything, Hikaru was going to say. And he's saying nothing. There's Hikaru live saying nothing. Now, maybe he's saving it for his live stream today, which is good because he does a wonderful, entertaining live stream. He plays chess 8 hours a day. 4,000 games, I think he's played with his viewers. I mean, he's terrific. And he admits that Magnus has his number. But now Magnus is out. Oh, I'm sure he's figuratively and consecutively banging his head against a wall. And hey, let's go to our favorite Reddit group, our chess, and the mega thread. Magnus is not defending his world championship title. It's still just shocking to me. And we should, and I would say, you should not be shocked because Magnus has been clear about this, that he's tired of the game. He wants to do other things with his life. Let's go ding. I was expecting this. I wouldn't want to play Nepo a second time around after the last world championship. It would be such a waste of time that is probably worth giving up the title. I sort of understand that. I mean, Magnus pounded Jan last time. It was an embarrassment. Why do it again? Why do I want to go there and beat the same guy a second time? And if for some reason in a year Jan has become somehow better and he beats me, that's embarrassing too. It's a lose-lose situation for me. Now, if Hikaru Nakamura had won the candidates, I pretty much guarantee you Magnus would be playing because he loves to give it to Hikaru. He knows he can beat him, and it would be a different person that he hasn't played for a long time in that sort of tense situation. And like a month or two back on this live stream, I showed you a video of Carlsen being in Hikaru's brain and how Hikaru made a blunder at the end of the game and was very upset because he had been winning and could not speak, could not move, could not look at Magnus. And Magnus knew that Hikaru had blundered and he had won the game. So you can sit there, like a jerk and just, hide a smirk, or you can do what Magnus did, which was beautiful and kind. He got up from the table and, kind of walked around. Looked at the other games. Oh, what are you guys doing? Because you can do that. You can go watch these games if you're playing. Oh, what are you guys doing? And he walked all the way down the aisle, sat on a chair, all by himself, giving Hikaru a moment to compose himself because he was on the verge of beating Magnus in a very important contest. And you could tell that Hikaru was crying a little bit. He was very upset, very emotional. And Magnus gave him his space. I mean, it was a very beautiful moment. And so about 5 minutes he was waiting, and then Magnus slowly walked back over. And Hikaru took another minute or two to compose himself, and then finally, shook his hand and resigned the game. So yeah, he had great compassion for Hikaru, and he had great respect for Magnus for being a nice guy. Because a lot of these chess guys are sometimes not that nice. They're a very different breed of people. They don't think on the same level we do. They do not have the same emotions that we do. They're sort of out in the world in different, interesting ways. And we're going to talk about that more, about Magnus Carlsen, in just a moment. But I just want to see some of this Reddit reaction. It's unfair to Nepo. He fought for 2 years to become the best, and now he can only become the second best. That's interesting. Because the best guy is the best that he doesn't even care. Kind of wild that Hikaru actually had a realistic chance of becoming world champion. It's going to eat him for the rest of his life. Because all he had to do was draw with Ding in the last game they played together, and he would have been in second place. And drawing is not that hard. Says I who knows not very much about chess. If you have black, you play the Berlin defense. They know you can't beat it. They draw you. If you're white, you have the advantage. You can play conservative. I don't know what Hikaru was thinking, and I'm sure Hikaru doesn't know what he was thinking because this was a missed opportunity. It doesn't matter to people that Magnus will have the highest rating, but not the title. Does the world champion have to be the highest rated player? Very interesting question. I understand the natural inclination to connect those two details, but so what? The World Championship is just the most prestigious classical match. It's not the only metric for all of chess. It's a shame Magnus is the best player, and you obviously want to see him play in World Championships as much as possible. I agree. Sounds like this will free him up to play more tournaments, so that should be nice too. And it's true that when you're, I guess, preparing for the World Championship, it's a 6-month slog. And what you do is you hire people to come in and test you and train you and beat you up, and you go lock down somewhere in Eastern Europe for 6 months, and you practice, and you have supercomputers, and you don't have a life for 6 months out of the year when you're training for the World Championship. So I kind of understand that. Fabiano, 2-horse race, Karuna is probably eating glass right now since he was so sure second didn't matter. And Hikaru, 14-move draw to secure the second place. Nakamura will be out there for months, lying awake at night thinking about bishop to d8. Like, don't get me wrong, the chaos is fun to watch in a schadenfreude sort of way, and I love Ding. But like everyone in the candidates, except for him, is likely PO'd to at least a certain extent over how Magnus announced it. I know if I were Fabi personally, and I did all that to gun for first and then fail, and then this happened, I'd be throwing up blood and making like voodoo dolls or something. Dang, Magnus, at least give the people the courtesy of knowing which places to play for. And this is very interesting. Seems like this will do to chess what Tiger's absence did to golf. Some people think Magnus is just going to come back in a year or two and go through the candidates and win and crush everyone again. It is very interesting because he's lived his whole life to be the world champion. And now he's saying it's not enough. Maybe speed chess instead of the over the board. It's hard when you play a game over the board and each game is like 4 or 5 hours long. And then you have to go back the next day and play another 4 or 5 hour long game, and then you get a day off. But is it a day off, or is it a day of research, finding all of your mistakes and the mistakes of your opponent? It's very exhausting. So we're in for an interesting time. And when we come back from our break, we're going to have a very brief conversation about Magnus Carlsen and perhaps the source of his genius. Returning in a moment. And we are back here on Bowls.tv, BOLES.tv, television, hey, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. Eastern. Well, we've been talking about Magnus Carlsen and his wild success as the world champion of chess for the past 5 years, and his want not to defend his title, with Nepo and Ding now going to play for the championship. And an interesting thing about Magnus is this idea that has been surrounding him, swirling around him for a long time, is the question about him being on the spectrum. Is he autistic? Does he have Asperger's? And even asking that question really makes a lot of people uncomfortable, saying it's none of our business. And perhaps it's not, but there's been a lot of speculation about it online, and even Magnus has addressed it and then not addressed it and then sort of addressed it. That makes it an opportunity to have a conversation, which is really all we're seeking to do here. And there are people who want Magnus to be on the spectrum because it's important to have people to be role models and examples of excellence in dealing with being on the spectrum. It's sort of the same idea of some radicals, militants in the gay community who want these closeted and hidden actors, superstars, politicians to come out of the closet and say, I am a gay man, I am a gay female, and this is my life. Take it or leave it, it's who I am. Because that normalizes what has been restricted and tainted by a society that does not understand. And then you sort of understand why these celebrities, who are well known in the gay community, do not want to come out and say anything officially because they know what's going to happen. It's not going to be a great coming out party. It's going to be a major backlash, probably, from people saying, oh, no, you lied to us all these years. We asked you if you were gay. We asked you if you were in love with a man, if you were in love with a woman. And you said, no, you're two-faced. You get nothing. And that was the problem with old-time Hollywood, is in their communities, in their groups, they were able to be themselves. But in the tabloids, if you're Rock Hudson, you had to marry your publicist. So you didn't look gay. So when we talk about Magnus Carlsen and his absolute genius, there are some people who want him to share who he really is. And some of the rumors that go around that have been verified, not verified, are he lives at home with his parents. I believe he's in his 30s, late 20s. That every morning at a very specific time, his parents go to his bedroom, wake him up with a glass of orange juice. May not sound odd or strange, but for people, as I understand it, who have experience with people on the spectrum, that they like structure, they like predictability, they like things on a schedule. And to keep them centered and focused, you do that for them. And chess is a very intensive mind game in your own mind and in the minds of others. And there are some people in the community who say, my goodness, can you imagine what this would do for Asperger's or autism if Magnus Carlsen said, hey, I'm the world champion and I have little bit I'm on the spectrum. It would be illuminating. It would be refreshing. But there is shame in that, appears, for anyone to come out and say, well, yeah, my genius in chess is not because of me or my mind, it's because of this thing I have on the spectrum, which allows me to concentrate and see things that other people can't see. Well, that is the meaning of genius. And over the years, we've had geniuses on the spectrum who may not have even known that they were on the spectrum. And I remember seeing, if you have any exposure, even a minimal exposure to people who have autism or Asperger's, you know to recognize some of the behaviors. And if you watch video of Magnus Carlsen walking, he has a very interesting gait where his hips are kind of turned in as he walks. It doesn't look like an average walk. Take that or leave it. In early games, using the clock, there are videos of him tapping the clock, because when you make a move, you tap the clock to stop your clock, and the other person's clock starts ticking. And there was one particular game where you're watching, Magnus play, and then you see him turn off his clock, and you think, wow, just that one little move is very telling. And most people, let's say this is your clock, you tap your clock, and the next person moves. And in this bit of video, I saw Magnus tap his clock this way with his hand this way, and it went like that. Now, most people don't tap a flat surface. You would make your hand flat to tap the surface. You would not raise your hand like that to tap the surface. It was very interesting and just a little bit of a possible sign, a tell. He doesn't do that anymore. Now you see him and he taps it the average way. But just the arm movement was different, and the way he tapped the button was very different. And then you go and you do a little bit of research. And the first thing that you know recently, which I admire, I think the guy is a little strange, but Elon Musk has opened up. He said, hey, look, I have Asperger's. I'm a little odd. I'm a little strange. I don't know if it's the source of my genius or not. April 15, 2022, gave an interview about Asperger's and how it's affected his life. Hey, Gordon says, isn't it a tiny button on the clock? I would think a finger would suffice. One moment. Okay. A little bit dusty, a little bit hidden. So this is a chess clock. This is what they look like. It's a big, huge button. I should have used this for my demonstration. So most of it's right there. So when you're done, you just tap it, and it's very soft. You don't go like this with the hand raised. You can. For people with exposure to people on the spectrum, it says, I've seen that before. So, hey, Gordon says, those are much newer than the ones I've seen in older photos. I can see tippy tapping with one finger, though. Yeah, they're very nice. And the old one with the old clocks, they don't use those anymore. They use these, and they're tied to the chessboard, so they can sometimes see the moves that you're making. It's all computerized now. It's beautifully done. So that's weird. Because a flat surface, you want to make sure you're hitting it. You wouldn't want to hit it with these knuckles. So So Elon has come out and said, look, I have Asperger's. Now, was there any uproar? Did some people say, now I understand. He's not really a genius. It's his Asperger's. No, the reaction was kind of like, oh, okay. We kind of suspected that based on some of your behavior. It's an invisible disability. And there's nothing wrong with being on the spectrum. And that is the point I'm trying to make in this conversation about Magnus is, can you imagine what this would do for kids on the spectrum? For people with Asperger's, for Magnus to say, oh, by the way, I just happen to have a little touch of something, whatever it is. And he has sort of said that, but we'll get to that in a minute. Most adults with invisible disabilities, such as Asperger's, conceal them professionally to avoid stigmas and potential discrimination. Well, you're the world champion. Do you really want people to know that about you? And then people are going to make fun of him and say, oh, he's not a genius. It's his Asperger's that makes him a genius. Growing up, the social cure cues were not intuitive, Musk said. When asked about it on a TED conference, I would just tend to take things very literally. But then that turned out to be wrong. People were not simply saying exactly what they mean. There are all sorts of other things that are meant. And it took me a while to figure that out. And you can kind of see that in the way he deals with the world. He's in his own mind many times, even when he's speaking to you, which is fine. I remember we were talking about Donald Trump's son, Barron. And for a while, there was speculation on the internet that Barron was on the autism scale. And Trump talked about you'd have to take a little baby, you're going to vaccinate him, the baby comes home and has autism. Gordon says, I often struggle to understand what people mean and have a hard time getting when people are being sarcastic or joking. Well, there you go. That's very interesting. It doesn't mean you have Asperger's. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Who knows? And there was outrage that Barron Trump was being accused of being on the autism scale, even though Trump had been talking about it. And Rosie O'Donnell came out and said something about that. Oh, well, I have kids who have autism and Asperger's, and, I see a lot of that behavior in Barron Trump. And man, she got creamed in the media. How dare you pick on a child? All the ridiculous stuff. And I just happened to reply to her and said one sentence. There's nothing wrong with being on the spectrum. And Rosie O'Donnell followed me back, and I followed her, and the rest is history. So she got slammed for telling the truth as she knew it. And I understand, Barron has a private life, but you watch him when he is in public. He's very tall now. Doesn't really make eye contact. Always appears a little out of sorts. And can you imagine how much good it would do if someone like that would come out and say, hey, it's not a big deal, but I'm just letting you know. Just like Elon did. It's not a big deal, but these are some of the problems that I have in my life. And I'm not making an excuse, but I have Asperger's. And Musk says, I found it rewarding to spend all night programming computers just by myself. But I think that is not normal. He also said becoming obsessed with physics and trying to figure out the meaning of life. My driving philosophy is to expand the scope and scale of consciousness so we may better understand nature and the universe. The big picture, this article says, Asperger's and other similar disorders that were previously diagnosed separately are now part of a wide diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. And there are roughly 1.5 million people with ASD. They're expected to reach adulthood in the next decade. So it's good that people are not feeling they have to hide what some people label as a disability. So then you go to the Google. Magnus Carlsen, autism. And look at what you get. Many years ago, someone actually asked me, says Magnus, if I suffered from autism. I thought the question was stupid. So I replied, well, isn't that obvious? That was silly. I'm obviously not suffering from autism. Later, I realized that not everyone shares that view, and I probably shouldn't have made that thoughtless remark. Yeah, the problem is the word suffering. Just because you are on the spectrum, or because you have autism or Asperger's, does not mean you are suffering or a lesser person. And here are all the links talking about the boy genius and his behavior. And the most interesting one is this Quora conversation. Gordon says, I'm not suffering from autism. I'm rather enjoying it. Could have been a rather amusing reply. I agree, but that would have meant he was admitting that he has it, and he doesn't want to have it. He doesn't want that to be, because people will say that's the reason why he's a genius. It's because of his disability, not because of who he is as a person. But the problem is, Magnus, it's one and the same. You are who you are. So here's this big conversation on Quora. Is Magnus Carlsen autistic? Well, isn't that obvious? In a December 2013 interview with Norwegian tabloid, he clarified he had meant obviously not, and that he considers himself to have normal social skills and to be function normally. Now, would you say that if you were not perhaps on the spectrum? Why would you say, I consider myself to have normal social skills and to be functioning normally? The people who are functioning normally do not phrase it that way. It sounds like a canned and a practiced reply. In the summer of 2014, I had the opportunity to sit across from Magnus. Hey, Gordon says, to circle back the thing about actors staying in the closet, some people are concerned that they want to be known for their acting ability and not for what they do in terms of sexuality. Very true. You don't ask about Tom Hanks's sex life and say, oh, he's great because he's straight. That's a point. But there are other people who take advantage of their sexuality to either get ahead or to control other people or to, have a fake boyfriend and say, oh, this is the love of my life for 20 years, where, everyone knows that you bought your girlfriend an apartment in New York and you pay for her living expenses. Hey, Gordon also says, it's a bit like this Magnus thing. He wants to be known as a chess player, Magnus, not on the spectrum chess player, Magnus. Right. And I say to Magnus, what does it matter? You are who you are. And if you're hiding part of you because you're ashamed of it, that's a problem. In the summer of 2014, I had the opportunity to sit across from Magnus at dinner and chat with him extensively. I'm in no way a professional psychologist or similar, but I can nevertheless say with some confidence that he is not, in fact, autistic. He has normal social skills and functions normally in situations. And then this person goes on to say, hey, I've also met Garry Kasparov several times, and I'd say the same of him, not autistic. He is quite intense, but he takes chess very seriously. And then another person says, in the history of chess, there have been many top players that have been in the autism spectrum, most notably Bobby Fischer. And if you've seen and watched and observed Bobby Fischer, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Currently, Czech Grandmaster David Navarra seems to fall in that category as well, but as far as I know, it's still unconfirmed. However, Magnus Carlsen, while impatient at times and occasionally appearing socially awkward, but in the light of massive tension security, hardly a surprise, Magnus is most definitely not on the spectrum. And then here we go. This is the one you're going to see from 3 years ago that gets copied and pasted into Reddit. This is the original. Yes, Magnus Carlsen is high on the autism spectrum. It is curious how many here who know nothing about autism are declaring him innocent, as if autism is the worst thing in the world for him to have. Many people that were thought to be strange or socially abnormal 40 years ago, when I was a kid, we now realize are on the autism spectrum. And their strangeness is explained by common autism characteristics. As someone who teaches many special needs children, here are the autistic traits I noticed with Magnus Carlsen. No eye contact, doesn't like to be touched, responds to social interactions but does not initiate them, does not generally share observations or experiences with others, difficulty understanding jokes, figures of speech, or sarcasm, difficulty reading facial expressions and body language, difficulty understanding the rules of conversation, difficulty understanding group interactions, aversion to answering questions about themselves, gives spontaneous comments which seem to have no connection to the current conversation, makes honest but inappropriate observations, seems unable to understand another person's feelings, prefers to be alone, aloof, or overly friendly, difficult maintaining friendships, unaware, disinterested in what is going on around them, talks excessively about one or two topics, dinosaurs, movies, whatever, overly trusting or unable to read the motives behind people's actions, minimal acknowledgement of others, abnormal use of pitch, intonation, rhythm, or stress while speaking. Speech is abnormally loud or quiet. Obsessions with objects, ideas, desires. Ritualistic, compulsive behavior patterns, sniffing, licking, watching objects fall, flapping arms, spinning, rocking, humming, tapping. Fascination with rotation. Play is repetitive. Unusual attachment to objects. Difficulty transferring skills from one area to another. Frustration is expressed in unusual ways. Gross motor skills are developmentally behind peers, riding a bike, skating, running. Fine motor skills are developmentally behind peers, handwriting, tying shoes, scissors. Inability to perceive potentially dangerous situations. Extreme fearophobia for no apparent reason. Verbal outbursts. Unexpected movements, running into the street. Difficulty sensing time, knowing how long 10 minutes is, or 3 days, or a week. Difficulty waiting their turn. Causes injury to self. Sensitivity or lack of sensitivity to sounds, textures, and touches, light, and smell. Desires comfort items, blankets, teddy bear, rocks. Laughs, cries, or throws a tantrum for no apparent reason. Resists change in the environmental. An emotional incident can determine the mood for the day. Emotions can pass very suddenly or drawn out for a long period of time. Becomes overwhelmed with too much verbal direction. Tends to either tune out or break down when being reprimanded. Calmed by external situations. Soothing sounds, brushing, rotating object, constant pressure. Gordon says, his teddy bear he still has from childhood, sitting on the couch next to him nervously. You need to be left alone to release tension and frustration. Exceptionally high skills in some areas and very low in others. Difficulty with reading comprehension. Can quote an answer but can't predict, summarize, or find symbolism. Difficulty with fine motor skills, coloring, printing, scissors, and gluing. Short attention span for most lessons. Resistance or inability to follow directions. Difficulty transitioning from one activity to another in school. Walks on toes. Unusual gait. Difficulty changing from one floor surface to another, carpet to wood, sidewalk to grass. Odd or unnatural posture, rigid or floppy. Difficulty moving through space, bumps into objects or people. Walks without swinging arms freely. There are a lot of Magnus videos out there that make fun of his walk, and they're doing it very viciously, and they think it's funny. But if you watch them, it's a curious thing to see. Appearance of hearing problems, but hearing has been checked and is fine. Apparent lack of concern for personal hygiene, hair, teeth, body odors. From the very first interviews I saw with Carlson 11 years ago, he did not speak the way a 150 IQ plus person is expected to talk. He spoke slowly in strange patterns, unusual intonations, making bizarre facial expressions, seemingly not understanding the rules of social interaction or how to express yourself. Socially, his verbal acuity appeared to be very low, perhaps at a social IQ of around 85. The autistic traits he demonstrates have nothing to do with being introverted. The way his mouth hangs agape often is typical for people not socially aware of how they look, acting unconsciously in strange ways. Carlson has frequent outbursts, makes bizarre facial expressions, and communicates in abnormal and unpredictable ways, even in Norwegian. He is aloof, unfriendly, obsessed with objects, and needs routine in everything he does. He has trouble understanding humor and feels uncomfortable in new situations, which are both the opposite of the way nearly all intelligent non-autistic people are. This is why he lives at home, even into his late 20s, with his parents still bringing him orange juice every morning. He resists changes in his life and essentially lives like a big child. Gordon says, try not to self-diagnose. And finally, this Quora article continues. He lives in his own world. This is part of the literal definition of the term ought and ism conjoined, and doesn't like people stepping into it. Those here should stop pretending that autism is some unknown thing that no one has ever diagnosed or knows anything about. The characteristics I mentioned above are well known in mental health literature. Magnus Carlson is clearly high on the autism spectrum. So you can take that or leave that. But it's a very interesting conversation to have. I remember when he was playing Jan, and they had a video of Magnus riding his bike to the site of the game in the last World Championship, parking his bike, getting off of his bike with his backpack, and then sort of half walking, running into the building. And just watching the way that he pedals a bike was very curious. Usually your knees are in line with your feet as you're pedaling. And Magnus's knees were just a little out, so he was sort of pedaling like this. Maybe it doesn't mean anything. And usually when you get off your bike, you get off your bike. And Magnus sort of was doing steps. Very subtly. I'm now parking my bike. I'm now lifting my leg. I'm now lifting my leg off of the bike. I am putting my foot down next to my other foot. I'm now standing up. I'm checking my bike is straight and on its own. I'm now standing up. I'm now turning. I'm now beginning to walk. It wasn't that stunted and that dramatically presented, but you could see that it looked a little mechanical. And you've seen Magnus being interviewed, and he's very uncomfortable. He does not really initiate answers. To try to get answers out of him is a lot of work. He doesn't really kid around or joke. And on the stage at the last World Championship, he had Magnus over here kind of sulking in his chair, all down like this. And he was ahead and winning. And on the opposite end of the dais, you have Jan sitting there completely humiliated, smiling and sort of making, jokes about himself, self-deprecating humor. And if you looked at the pictures, Jan, Magnus, who's winning? You would say that Jan is winning. And it was just the opposite. Magnus was crushing him. So is he, isn't he? Does it matter? Does it not matter? These are conversations that some people are having in the world. And I understand people who say, look, Magnus, come out, let us celebrate the genius of who you are across the spectrum. And then I understand that perhaps people like Magnus want to say, look, if I come out and say something like that, people are going to think I'm some sort of fraud or some kind of freak. And I don't want that. And he doesn't really, talk about having a girlfriend or wanting a family or any future plans. It's all just very unspoken, which is all fine. None of it has to mean anything. But when you're just sort of observing behavior and actions, and it makes you wonder if there's something out there that could be shared, a greater facility that would help a lot of people feel better about themselves. But some people are only interested in themselves. They are not interested in other people. They don't want to help. They don't want to be bothered. And that's fine too. But I will finish this thought. What I said to Rosie McDonald. There's nothing wrong with being on the spectrum. Now we're taking a very brief final blood pressure break, returning in a moment. Oh, we're back from break. Now, I'm not saying I'm on the spectrum. Maybe I have a little bit of OCD, but it bothers me that I didn't put up my intermission thing when I went on intermission. And now that I'm back, now I can go back to my main live. Maybe it's OCD, maybe it's something else. I completely accept my madness, my strangeness, my on the spectrumness, whatever it is. Do it right. Hey, while we're out, Gordon says, hey, fun thing to welcome you back. Thank you so much. I, Gordon, have the habit of listening to the Taylor Swift album, Red. Taylor's version every Thursday. It's just something I do. LOL. I don't know anything about Taylor Swift. I know she's big. I know she's popular. I know she's re-recorded all of her songs so the people who helped her early in her career get no money out of it. And so you're going to have to explain to me, I don't know if the Red has some kind of significance other than you obsessively listening to it on Thursdays. But as I have heard that there are people in the community, Gordon says it's just a great record. Well, there you go. Oh, El Beyonce 2 disagrees, unless you're talking about the original El Beyonce. That's fun. The people are very upset with Taylor Swift because she is one of those in the community who is one thing and presents to be another. The rumor, as I read it, is that she has a very serious hidden relationship that she's known for a long time and who lives with her as a friend. And then she has a public relationship with other people to keep her outer facade intact. Hey, Gordon just says, ha! I asked El Beyonce 2, what's your favorite Taylor Swift album? And the reply was just one song and named which one it was. That's very funny. But imagine if it were true that someone, let's say like a Taylor Swift, made an announcement about their personal life. How much good that would do for young kids who might be in the same situation and be too fearful and too frightened to come out and admit the same sort of thing. But I understand there's money involved. Lives will be destroyed. We must keep up the facade. Okay. But at least in Magnus's case, I mean, in any chess player's case, to sit in front of a computer chessboard for 5 hours in your own mind, thinking of the 1,000 ways that this can go, is not an average mind. And if the exceptionalism of that mind is something related to something on the spectrum that helps you see things that other people don't see, that you have a superpower that is the envy of other people, what's wrong with that? But society is cruel and unforgiving, so I understand why a lot of people don't do what they might want to do or what they fear to do. Whew, what a show. It seems like we just started 5 minutes ago. And I've been talking for 2 hours. But I appreciate your time. Had a wonderful conversation. And if you have any thoughts or comments for me, you know where to find me. In email, david@bowles.tv. On Twitter, super follows to follow, @DavidBowles. On the Facebook, BOLES is our business page. Instagram, we're Bowles Books. TikTok, Bowles TV. And if you want to chat with us on Discord, you may very easily go and find us here. We post thoughts and conversations and interesting information and images. We have all kinds of fun. Hey, Commissioner Gordon says, signing off from Winter Garden, Florida, saying, thanks for having us. And my Bob replies this, hey, see you in a day or two. and I'll have more ideas for you. So I hope you have a great nap, a wonderful sleep, a great wake up, and when your soul reawakens, may you be filled with joy, anticipation, and no sort of hiding whatsoever. I'll see you tomorrow.